Okay, so yesterday we started talking about Vaeschanan. So let's take it. Let's see the few psukim over here. Vaeschanan el Hashem ba'isei lemar. I pleaded with Hashem, and Mosher Rabbeinu wants to go into Eretz Yisrael, and the first thing is that we have to know that Hashem owes us nothing. So He owes us nothing. We have to, we daven, we ask. But a person should never feel that, I deserve it, and I deserve it for my good behavior, and I deserve it for good things that I've done, because we don't know how, we only think about the good things we've done. We have very selective memory. But, so Moshe Rabbeinu is pleading with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That we spoke about yesterday. And we learned from here, what is the lemor? Vaeschanan el Hashem ba'isahi lemor. Normally lemor is Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemor. Hashem says to Moshe lemor to tell the Bnei Yisrael something, to pass it on. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, Vaeschanan el Hashem ba'isahi. I've pleaded to Hashem at that time. Lemor. What's the lemor got to do? Is Hashem supposed to tell this to somebody? What's lemor doing here? It doesn't make any sense.
For us to hear too.
What?
It's for us to hear too.
Oh, excellent. See, that's what happens to graduates of the Vaeschanan program. It's the influence of the Vaeschanan. The excellent. Lemor means that it's to tell future generations that when you have trouble, you cry out to Hashem. When you want something, cry out to Hashem. That's what the lemor is. The whole Torah is, the word Torah comes from the word moreh, hora'ah, instruction. So the Torah is teaching us, you want something, say ask for it. And don't be afraid to ask for it. So he says, Hashem Elokim atah chilos alaros avdachas godlucha v'yodcha chazaka. You've shown your great hand. Rashi explains what each one of these, what this is referring to. Asher mikel b'shamayim v'ortz asher yasa k'ma'asecha v'chigvurasecha. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, please Hashem, Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim. And when we say in Shemon Esrei, Hashem Sfasai Tiftach, right? We say before we start davening Shemon Esrei, we say Hashem Sfasai Tiftach. We kind of say it real quick, but the reason it's spelled Hashem Aleph Daled Nun Yud as opposed to Yud Ke Vav Ke is what's called the Shem Adnus. He's the master, so we need permission even when we daven. Just walk in and talk to the president. How would you feel if you're talking to the president of the United States? How would you talk if you're talking to Tsar Nicholas, who was never known for his good humor? And how would you feel when you go in front of Shlomo HaMelech? How would you feel if he spoke like you'd be trembling, you'd be shaking. So we even need Hashem Svasai Tiftach when we start the Shemon Esrei. We even need to plead with Hashem, put me in a state where I can even talk to you. We just kind of, hi Hashem. Hashem Svasai Tiftach. Talk. One second. How do we? If it was a king of flesh and blood, we wouldn't be so flippant. And therefore, you need that's the Shem Adnus over here. Moshe Rabbeinu has Hashem Elokim, but he uses the Shem Adnus. Then he says, this is the part we want to get to. Let me cross over into the land. Hahar HaTova Zevel Avonon. Hahar HaTova is Yerushalayim. The Levanon is the Beis HaMikdash. It's called white because Levanon is Malbin Avonos Anshel Yisrael. It whitens the sins of the Jewish people. Sin, we always think of sin as the color red, right? That's what we think of sin. Because if you stop and think about it, had Adam Harishon not done any Averas, there would be no illness and there would be no blood. There'd be no blood. There'd be no blood is always a sign of injury. And blood red is always a sign of sin, as in red light districts and so on and so forth. Red is a sign of sin. It would never be there. And it says on Yom Kippur that they tied the ribbon to the what do you call it, the red ribbon to the goat and to the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash. And when the goat went off the cliff, the red ribbon would turn white to show that the sins of the Jewish people had been whitened, because white is always a sign of purity. I told you the story about the kid who comes up to his parents. Yeah, make yourself comfortable. I told the story about the kid who got, by the way, it's like we started, Ben Asmanim is starting at 12 o'clock instead of 12:10. So the kid who walks up to his parents are sitting at a table. He says, hey, Mom, Dad, how come a bride dresses in white? So the mother says, well, because white is a symbol of beauty, purity. That's why a bride dresses white on her wedding day. The father says, no, that's not why. Because all major home appliances come in white. So it's a joke. Welcome back to Mechina. Yeah. Just a joke, guys. Just a joke. I tell it at the seminaries, and the girls just all go, "Oh, that's terrible." I said, "Well, you ain't heard nothing yet." like the kid who walks up, sees his parents are sitting, and kid walks up to his parents, and his parents are looking at the wedding album, and kid looks at 9-year-old kid. He takes his parents' wedding album and says, "Hey, Pop, that the day Mom came to work for us?" Welcome. There used to be a show on TV. Remember Welcome Back, Cotter? Yeah, welcome back. So just a joke, gentlemen, just a joke. So so over here, Moshe Rabbeinu says, let me go. Ebra nava eretz ha'aretz hatova, ha'hara tova zevel avana. Now, what is Moshe Rabbeinu asking for? Moshe Rabbeinu was told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, take a look back in Parshas Baaloscha. Where is it, Baaloscha? Where Moshe Rabbeinu is told he can't go into the land. Where is it? Parshas, I think Parshas Baaloscha, where he hits the rock. B'midbar, Naso. Where is it? Is it 780? Is it in Baaloscha? Chukas, correct. Yeah, right. See what happens when guys come from the Mechina program? That's what happens. There you go. And Chukas, they're holding, right? What page? 840. Yeah. Now look at page 844. Look at the pasuk on 844. This is right after Moshe hits the rock. And then we're going to compare and contrast. Over here, Hashem says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron, Yan lo emantem bilak disheni le b'nei Yisrael, because you didn't sanctify my name in front of the presence of b'nei Yisrael. Lochein lo saviu es hakol hazel aretz asher nesati lohem. You're not going to bring them into the land. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say over here? Compare and contrast. What does he say over here? Ebra na ve'eres aretz hatova asher bevar yarden. Let me cross over and go into the land. What's Moshe Rabbeinu saying? Hashem already told him you're not going in. He's already said you're not going in. So what is Moshe Rabbeinu asking for over here? There's a difference between, look over here, what Hashem says. Moshe Rabbeinu understood that Hashem said, you will not bring the people into the land. Okay, I won't bring the people into the land. I don't mind. I don't need leadership. I'll let Yehoshua be the leader. I have no problem. Ebra, no, let me just go in a private citizen. Ebra, no, ve'eres ha'aretz hatova asher be'ar yarden hatova. Let me go in. And so Moshe Rabbeinu said, I don't care, I just want to go into the land. Now, you know the famous medrash of Moshe Rabbeinu said, let me go in as a bird. Let me go in if I can't go in as a human being, let me go in as a bird. That's what the medrash says. What's your reaction to that?
I'll do it.
You would do it? Yeah, I know you guys would do a lot of things I wouldn't do, like skydiving, bungee jumping, that sort of thing. But what's your reaction to Moshe? They asking to go in. The Medrash says he has to go in as a bird. Nothing bother you about that? Nothing bother you about that? I mean, you're just okay with that, huh? You're just fine. That's what it sounds like. I mean, you're right. That's what the Medrash is saying. It's I'll do anything to go in. But if something should bother you about that.
Well, we don't appreciate Eretz Yisrael the way he did. It's like, so we're just numb to it.
But say there, it's still something should bother you about that Medrash. What's your name?
Zach.
Zach, go ahead.
But when you get reincarnated as an animal, it's like a very tume thing. It's like an easy.
It's true. It's true. When you get reincarnated as an animal, it's bad because the Kabbalistically, I don't know any. I'm just telling you what the sources say. I'm not a Kabbalist. If I was, there are a few people I'd zap, but I'm not a Kabbalist. But the Kabbalistically, if a person comes back as an animal, you remember that you were in a previous incarnation. You're just back as an animal, and you can't function as a human being. Can't express yourself. Somebody comes.
Consciousness of.
Yeah, that's what the Kabbalists say. It's bad. So a person, it says, somebody who's immoral in his previous Gilgal, if he didn't do tshuva wipes everything out. But if a person didn't do tshuva, he brought back as a dog. So you're a dog, and all you want, and you would like to express yourself, and all that happens is you bark. Now, having said that, by the way, having said that, we know the concept that if you ever see a dog, nobody's looking. Don't start talking to the like. Come on, what you do, bro? What was it all about? Don't talk to the dog. We know the concept. We don't know that any particular dog is necessarily a reincarnation. But the dog who is reincarnated knows he was once a human being. A human being who's reincarnated, sometimes people think, they say deja vu. They think deja vu is reincarnation. Did you ever hear that? Deja vu is reincarnation. It's not. It just means you need some more sleep or drug flashback or whatever it is, but it has nothing to do with reincarnation. But when you reincarnate as an animal, so then you know that you were once a human being, which is bad, especially if your wife remarried and then she and her new husband then went to the kennel and bought a dog and it's you. Yeah, that would be real bad, right? That would be real bad. And then they're sitting at the table eating and you're the dog on the floor and they're talking, you go, and they throw you a couple of scraps of bread. Yeah, that would be bad. Therefore, guys, be good. Right? That's the Mosher. Today's Mosher lesson. Be good. Do not come back as a dog. So there is, but this is not reincarnation. Moshe Rabbeinu says, let me go in as a bird. Now you're close. Let me go in as a bird. Nothing bother you about that?
What's the point of going in as a bird? He wants to do mitzvahs.
Oh, there we go. What's your name?
Dovid.
Dovi? Nice name. The which program are you in? Main base. There you go. Were you in Mechina at any point?
No, but I got the hashpach.
Over there you go. It's being in the room over here, yeah. So and others, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says, what did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into? He want to go in and eat the fruits of Eretz Yisrael. He's talking about beautiful fruits, 7 species, luscious fruits. The Gemara in Ksuvah says the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, the produce ripens faster and better than anywhere else. And the Gemara says, well, Moshe Rabbeinu is begging to go in, when I eat the fruit, Moshe Rabbeinu want to go in to do the mitzvahs. He wants to go to the mitzvahs at Truma, Meiser, mitzvahs, and Tliyos V'aretz. So what's it going to help to go in as a bird? A bird has no bechira birds. Well, what bird don't do mitzvahs? What's a bird? They hang out at the kaisel, but they don't do mitzvahs there. So what do you do other things? So what's going to help to be a bird? So a bird's eye view. It's like get a look at very so, but of course Baruch Hu's already going to give him that view. He's going to take him up on a mountain and say, look, you're going to see the entire land. What do you want to go in as a bird for? Nothing, but you accomplish anything. So Moshe, as I say, it's a real question. It's like a question a kid would ask. And sometimes kids ask the best questions, by the way. Kids sometimes ask the best questions, sometimes give the best answers. So Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go, Moshe finds it says, because every aspect of creation is a promotion of Hashem's Kedusha, Hashem's honor. When you see animals, why are there so many different animals? That's Niflos Habore. When you see different types of birds, why does Hashem need so many different species of animals? With the magnificent characteristics that different species have. A hawk could see a worm from about 2 miles away, something like that. A hawk that's flying around sees a worm, and he goes, he zeroes in on it. Why do Kosh Baruch Hu, when you study nature, I'm not saying you should, but if you do, you get wow, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is remarkable what he's done over here. Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go in. If I can't go in as a human being, our whole job in life is to promote Hashem's honor. If I can't go in as a human being, let me go in as a bird. So let me go in. I'll be a bird in Eretz Yisrael. And that promotes Hashem. Hey, look, a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a bird. No, it's a plane. Oh, it's Moshe Rabbeinu.
Does the bird get schar, or is it the shame?
No, that's a good question. Does a bird get schar? And we'll see about Moshe Rabbeinu getting schar. But somebody once asked me, there was a story about a guy who fell into the water off the coast of in the Gulf of Mexico in shark-infested waters. The guy fell in off his boat or something, and I don't know, was probably drinking beer, and he toppled over, and he fell into the water, and he was surrounded by sharks, which is bad. And dolphins fight sharks. And a group of dolphins, I don't know if they're called a school of dolphins. I don't know if I don't know if just the dolphin. The dolphins surrounded him, fought off the sharks, and they escorted him to dry land, according to his account. So a guy here once asked me if those dolphins get schar. Do the dolphins get reward? Right? What's the answer? Obviously not. Why not? Because they're only doing something by instinct. They don't have bechira. Dolphins are programmed to fight. You know, by the way, my brother was going to be a zoologist. My brother was going to be a zoologist. Today he's a Rabbi in a different yeshiva, and he's a Bucky in Shas. So what do you call it? He knows animals well as I know sports. Well, maybe not quite as well. But he told me, you know how dolphins fight sharks? They torpedo themselves at the shark's gills. And they smash the gills to the point that the shark can no longer take in water. He essentially suffocates. It's pretty cool. Not only that, he told me, this is really interesting. Again, we're talking about niflo sabor, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The dolphins, when they sense that there's a shark in the area, they'll actually send out one of the dolphins as a decoy. And the shark will come out after that dolphin, and the other ones gang up on him and smash him up. My kasha was, how do they determine who's the decoy? And that was always my kasha. Okay, Melvin, you're up. No, I did it 2 weeks ago. My tail hasn't grown back yet. 1 second, let Arthur do it. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but they said that that's the niflos of art. Okay, they don't have bechira. The bird doesn't get bechira. Moshe finds, he says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, my goal is not schar. My goal is not to eat the fruit. My goal is to promote HaKadosh Baruch Hu's glory. Let me go in as a bird. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said no. So what does Hashem say? Now pay attention, very subtle. The Art Scroll translates it. Watch how he translates it. Vayisaber Hashem bi lemanchem. Hashem got angry at me because of you. Now, lemanchem does not mean because of you. Vayisaber Hashem biglalchem is because of you. Lemanchem, if you translate it religiously, which we should because we're learning Chumash, if you translate religiously, what does lemanchem really mean? For your sake. What does that mean? Hashem got angry at me for your sake. V'lo shamai lai. So the plain meaning is Hashem got angry at me because of you, because I had to hit the rock, and because I called you Mamrim. Vayomer Hashem elai ravloch al tosef daber elai od v'daber hazeh. That's it. No more talking about this subject. So ravloch over here goes back to what you were saying before, Jonathan. The ravloch means you don't need to go into Eretz Yisrael. You have a lot of schar. Rav, harbe. Rav means a lot. Ravloch, you'll have a lot of schar. Al tosef elai b'daber. You don't need to. Don't talk about. You don't need to go into Eretz Yisrael. You're not going to lose out, Mosher Rabbeinu. But what's the manchem got to do with this? What's Hashem got angry at me for your sake? He didn't let me go into Eretz Yisrael. So there's a medrash here. There's a medrash here like this. The medrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu, where is it? I have it here somewhere. Just 1 second. Very, very strange medrash. Yeah. The medrash says that Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you killed the Mitzri in Egypt. Remember Moshe Rabbeinu when he goes out from the palace, and Moshe Rabbeinu leaves the palace, and he goes out, he sees there's an Egyptian is beating up a Jew. So Moshe Rabbeinu killed the Mitzri, and he buried him in the sand. So the medrash says that Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you killed the Mitzri, and you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? So the medrash says. What does that mean? It sounds like he's getting criticized for killing the Mitzri, right? Was it a good thing to kill the Mitzri or not? Was it a good thing to kill the Mitzri? Of course it was a good thing. So what does that mean? What does the medrash mean? You killed the Mitzri and you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? What does that mean?
Probably was the only Jew killed an Egyptian throughout the whole thing.
It was. He was the only Jew who killed an Egyptian. But it was a good thing. It was still a good thing. Hashem's creature was trying to kill another one of Hashem's creatures. If you see somebody's killing somebody, hitting a Jew unjustifiably, Moshe Rabbeinu was 100% justified in killing the Mitzri. And he buried him in the sand.
It does change you. Killing someone fundamentally changes.
Good. If killing somebody fundamentally changes you, which is true, which is why everything we do when we killing, even shechita, has to be as humane as possible, so it has less of a negative effect on the person shechting. If you would kill the animals the way they used to kill them in the stockyards, the pigs in the stockyards of Chicago, they used to scald the pigs to death. Then they tell you shechita is not humane. Part of the idea is that it shouldn't have an effect on the person who's doing it. But it says by the Irhani Dachas, when an entire city has worshipped idols, then the halacha is that it's mass executions, not wanton executions, mass executions. There have to be 2 witnesses and warning for each person. But there, the Torah says you have to kill out the irhani dachas, and you burn all their possessions. But there, the Torah says v'nasan lecha rachamim v'richamcha. Hashem will give you mercy and have mercy on you. So the obvious question over there is, why does it say a double lashon? He'll have mercy on you when you carry out His will of executing all these people. That means it becomes a mitzvah to execute. It says He'll have mercy on you v'richamcha. And it repeats the word mercy, have mercy. This goes to what Bini is mentioning. There, the Meforshim explain that in spite of killing, it won't have that negative effect on you because you're doing Hashem's will. Pinchas goes and he kills Zimri and Cosby. What happens to Pinchas? He gets a bris shalom, he gets a peace treaty. He gets the Nobel Peace Prize. So here, Moshe Rabbeinu kills him. What does it mean? You killed the Mitzri, you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? And what does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, for your sake? The answer is, what would have happened if Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into it? We spoke about this. You must have heard about this on Tisha B'Av. What would have happened if Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into Eretz Yisrael? Exactly correct. Mashiach, Beis HaMikdash would be built. And then what happens? Then when HaKadosh Baruch Hu builds Moshe Rabbeinu's Beis HaMikdash, it'll never be destroyed. So when Hashem gets angry, where will He take out that anger? On people. And that's why it says, what do you call it? Kila Hashem chamaso al eitzim ve'avonim. Hashem took out His wrath on wood and stones. There were plenty of people killed. But the fact that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, that spares people's lives. So what's Hashem saying to Moshe Rabbeinu? He's saying, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem got angry at me for your benefit. He kept me out of Eretz Yisrael for your lemanchem, so that you will survive later on. And not only that, He kept me out of Eretz Yisrael because if I would have gone in, so that you wouldn't have time to rectify your personal flaws, because we'd have the building of the Beis HaMikdash, no more time for rectification. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu says it was all, Hashem got angry at me. Not certainly because of you, but in the end, you're the one who's going to benefit from it. Not only that, the Al-Sheikh says that Moshe Rabbeinu died in the desert, so that all those who died in the desert, Moshe Rabbeinu could eventually bring them in His merit. So all of it is for the benefit of the Jewish people. So what's Hashem? Now do you understand what Hashem's saying? You killed the Mitzri, and you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? Still haven't got that medrash, huh? Still haven't got that worked out? Put a $20 bill on the table. I'll tell you what the answer is. No. So the answer is that Moshe Hashem is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, when you killed the Mitzri, you showed your concern for even one Jewish life. You want to go into Eretz Yisrael? You know how many lives that's going to cost if you go into Eretz Yisrael? You showed already, and you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? That has potential to cost many lives if you go into Eretz Yisrael. Because if you go into Eretz Yisrael, then again, when push comes to shove, I'll have to take it out on the Jewish people. That's what the Medrash says. Okay, number one. Number two, Ravloch al Tosef Daber Lai Od Badover Azer. Ravloch. Take a look at Rashi. Take a look at Rashi, because Rashi goes in two directions over here. Left column of Rashi, 4 lines from the top. Left column of Rashi. You find it, please show the person next to you. Ravloch. What does Hashem mean? Shelo Yomru, they shouldn't say, Harav Kama Kosha, how harsh the Rebbe is, Talmud Kama Sarvan Umafzir. That, it looks bad for me if you keep begging and pleading, because everybody will say, well, Hashem is tough and Moshe Rabbeinu is soft and sweet. Dovar Acher, Ravloch, Harbe Mizeh Shomer Lecha, Rav Tov Atzofan Lecha. I got a lot more reward for you than going into Eretz Yisrael. There's a lot hidden, a lot waiting on account for you, Moshe Rabbeinu. And we learn from here a very important rule. Why does Moshe Rabbeinu have schar? Because Moshe Rabbeinu has a chelek in all of the mitzvahs of the Jewish people. He has a portion, he has a share in whatever they do. And this is a principle that we've spoken about many times, that there's a ripple effect that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a reward based on how you affect other people. If somebody sees you learning Torah, and a guy says, well, if he could learn, I should learn too, you now have a share in his learning. There's a famous story, the Panovich Rav. You've heard of the Panovich Rav. The Panovich Rav was the Rav of Panovich, which is why he's called the Panovich Rav, and that's why he named his yeshiva Panovich. And so the Panovich Rav was the Rav of the town, and he also had a yeshiva in Panovich. And at a certain point, the Panovich Rav felt, he's doing an awful lot for the community, but what about his own growth? What about his own learning? I mean, listen, the fact that you learn, the fact that you become the Panovich Rav, it doesn't mean you get to stop learning. And everybody at every level feels, what about my own growth? How much you give to the community, and how much people want to work on themselves. So the Panovich Rav did what everybody did in those days. When you had a question, he went to ask the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim was still alive, and you go to Das Torah, you go to ask the Torah leadership. So the Panovich Rav decided to go to the Chafetz Chaim. He said, listen, I'll ask the Chafetz Chaim. Here I am. I'm running a yeshiva. I have talmidim, and I'm involved over the community. But what about I would like to sit and learn? So he gets on a train, and he takes a 4-hour trip, 6-hour trip, whatever it was, till he gets to Radin. And he comes in and he knocks on the door, and he comes into the Chafetz Chaim. And as the Chafetz Chaim was his habit, before the Panovich Rav could say anything, the Chafetz Chaim said to the Panovich Rav, how many pages of Gemara did you learn today? How many daf Gemara did you learn today? So Panovich Rav says, I was in transit, I was running a transit. I managed to learn three daf Gemara today, but I didn't have really, that time to sit down and I did. I managed to learn 3 daf. The Chafetz Chaim said, I learned 200 daf Gemara today. Panovich Rav said, Chafetz Chaim, he's good, but he's not that good. 200 daf Gemara, it's an awful lot. Number one. Number two, as opposed to Chafetz Chaim, it's not like the Chafetz Chaim to start boasting about how much he's learned. So how much did you learn today? 3 daf. I learned 200. You wouldn't expect that for the Chafetz Chaim. So the Panovich Rav knew something was up. So he waited. The Chafetz Chaim said, come to the window. Chafetz Chaim he had met him apparently, where Chafetz Chaim had a yeshiva in Radin. And he took him to the window, and he pointed down to the Beis Medrash. He said, there are 200 Bochrim in my Beis Medrash. Each one of them has learned 1 daf today. I've learned 200 daf Gemara today. Panovich Rav turned around, he had his answer from the Chafetz Chaim, and went right back to Panovich. That means that there's an idea of what we think in terms of me, what I'm doing, but if you have an effect on somebody else, a boy who puts on his tefillin, a boy who wears tefillin on his bar mitzvah, the mother and father have schar. Not just the boy. The mother and father raised the boy with a value to put on tefillin. And if you have a chavrusa and you help your chavrusa, do you know that the Orach Chaim says that if a person teaches Torah, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, the Orach Chaim or the Chassam Sofer, I don't remember which one, he says, based on the psukim, if you teach Torah to people, then even when you're not able to learn Torah, if they're learning Torah, so obviously you get schar for their Torah. You get schar for their Torah. It's some ripple effect. So that's how Kosh Baruch Hu is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, you want to go into Eretz Yisrael? Don't worry about it. You got plenty waiting for you. Rav loch al tosef davar elai od b'davar hazeh. There's a famous story that there was a guy in Eretz Yisrael in the early days of the state. So a guy walked in. Today you see yeshiva guys all over the place, right? Everywhere you go, there. I think the estimation is there are 80,000. I think it's 80,000 draft dodgers the 80,000 yeshiva bachrim in Eretz Yisrael today. There are 80,000 yeshiva bachrim in Eretz Yisrael today. In the beginning, when the state first started, there were a few hundred. It was a handful of B'nai Torah in the state. So there's a story, I don't know all the details of the story, but there was a certain Rav who in Tel Aviv was a very religious area, and a Rav walked into a grocery store in Tel Aviv, and he sees the owner of the grocery store looks like a very ordinary Jew, and he sees he's got 2 sons with him who are B'nai Torah. 2 sons look like yeshiva bachrim. And it was just something was out of character over here. It was just something did not add up. So the Rav said to this grocery store owner, he said, "Can I ask you a question? You must have some merit. What is your merit that you have two sons who are such wonderful B'nai Torah?" So it's one Yeshiva Ohr. I said, "I don't know. The boys got interested. They want to go to yeshiva, and I'm happy with them." And I said, No. I said, there's got to be something you once did, something you did in your life they have this merit. So the guy says, I don't know anything special. I'm just a regular Jew. I do my thing. I gaven. No. Think. So he says, the only thing I could think of before I came to Israel, I was living in Europe. And I got a call one day from a rabbi from a certain town. He said he's got two boys that he wants to send to the Slobodka Yeshiva. Two young boys he wants to send to the Slobodka Yeshiva. And he needs funding for these boys for travel and for expenses. And I had some extra money at the time. So I gave the money and I funded the boys for Slobodka. And I heard that they did well in yeshiva, and maybe because I funded two boys, Hashem gave me two sons who are B'nai Torah. I said, well, that sounds logical. He says, that could very well be. I just had one question. Do you happen to remember the names of these boys? He goes, that was a long time ago, a very long time ago. I just know that they did well. I heard that they did well. So he said, try to think, what were their names? He goes, well, I think, one of them, his name was Yaakov Kamenetsky, and the other one was Aaron Kotler. And I heard they did well. He says to him, they did pretty well. As a matter of fact, all of the Torah that we have in America today can be directly attributed to both Rav Aaron Kotler and Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. So you stop and think, what did he do? And as a result of what he did, he now has schar. He has some sort of share in the Torah of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky and Rav Aaron Kotler, and he has some sort of share in all of the Torah of Lakewood, then, now, and whatever the satellites are, Torah Vadas, then, now, whatever the satellites are, and you understand there's some sort of infinite cheshbon that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has. And that's what it means. That's what it means that Ravloch. So whatever we learn, Mosher Rabbeinu now has schar. And every time you open up a Mishnah Berurah, the Chofetz Chaim has schar. And Moshe Rabbeinu has schar. And the Chofetz Chaim's Rebbe has schar. And the Rambam has schar. And there's like this super computer up there that keeps tabulating it. So everything that we do, there's nothing that we do. That's why the Gemara says in Psachim on Daf Nun Daled, the Gemara says there are 7 things nobody knows. Do you know that? The Gemara says that in Psachim. The Gemara in Psachim says there are 7 things nobody knows. Nobody knows how he's going to make parnasa. People try one venture and another venture till somebody, till eventually something works out, like a rich uncle dies and leaves them a pile. And nobody knows what the gender of the unborn child is going to be. Talk about without what's it called? What's the thing they use to check? Ultrasound, without ultrasounds. And by the way, even ultrasounds have been wrong. I've heard of a couple of cases where a guy says, Mazel Tov, you have a daughter, you have a son. He goes, no, it's a daughter. The ultrasound says the daughter. I'm telling you, it's a son. Here he is. And, so there, okay, but the Gemara says nobody knows what his friend is thinking. Obviously, because why? Then he wouldn't be your friend, probably. But so nobody knows what another guy is thinking. Nobody knows when his. And one of the things the Gemara says is nobody knows omek hadin, the depth of judgment. And Rashi there in Psachim and Daf Nun Daled says, omek hadin, the depth of judgment in this world, in court, because you know how you've learned, a little Baba Kama, and but what if he comes to Bingu? There's Omek Hadin, it's almost endless. Then Rashi says, Omek Hadin He'asid, the future depth of judgment. Because we don't know what the effects are. There could be negative effects too, but that's not as severe. But we are accountable for having a negative influence, but certainly the effects of the positive effects. That's Ravloch on Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, now take a look at, so Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Alei Rosha Pisga, go up to the top of the mountain, V'sai necha, raise your eyes, Yama v'tzafona v'teimano mizracha, Ureve necha, look with your eyes, kilo savor yarde. You're not going to cross this yarde. I remember a couple of weeks ago we spoke about, there is no mountain that you could stand on which will allow you a view of all of Eretz. You can't see all of Eretz Yisrael. Sometimes you go up high and you can see across the Jordan. From my neighborhood, we could see the Dead Sea. I get all excited. Wow, here's the Dead Sea. So you see it from you can't see the Golan Heights from here. And if you're on the other side of the Jordan, you can't see a lot. Well, lots of it may not be part of Eretz Yisrael. You can't see Beersheba from there. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to show Moshe Rabbeinu Eretz Yisrael, what do you got to go up on a mountain for anyway? You can't see it. You go up on a mountain. You go, for that matter, if you're going to see everything, you may as well put them in a valley. Here, I'll put you in a valley. Take a look at all of Eretz Yisrael. What does going up on a mountain help you? And what's the answer that we find all the time? It's a constant in Torah. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu does a miracle, we still minimize the miracle. Noach's ark could not carry all of those animals. I even asked my brother, who was going to be a zoologist, I once asked him, there are two opinions. What did Noach bring into the teva? Did he bring in dog, cat, lion, llama, hippopotamus? Or did he bring in German shepherds, poodles, French, the Dobermans? Was it every species or every subspecies? Every species. So there are different opinions. Some say it was every species. Some say it was every subspecies. Oh, that's exactly good. He asked, how big was the teva? The teva was about, I once made a calculation, the teva is 300 amas long, which is figure 450 at the 450 yards. About 4 football fields. No. An amma is about 1.5 feet, 450 feet. 450 feet, a football field and a half. A football field and a half. For those of you who understand in soccer terms, you shouldn't be thinking in those terms. You should be thinking in football terms. So it's about 450 feet long. And now, I once asked my brother, what if it was not subspecies? What if it was only species? Would it be big enough to hold all the species of animal in the world? He said, absolutely not. Do you know how big hippopotami are? Do you know how big cows are? These are big creatures, number one. And even if it could hold all those species, it certainly cannot hold all the food that these species need for an entire year. Do you know how much cows eat? Do you know how much elephants eat? We once spoke about that in Shir, the benefits of being in Mechina. How do you like that, Jonathan? Elephants eat 300 pounds of food a day. 300 pounds of food. Now, where are you going to put that? Multiply 2 elephants, 300 pounds. And by the way, hippopotami, they also eat like yeshiva guys. They also need a lot of feed. And we haven't even gotten to camels and giraffes and all these. So it's impossible for the teva to hold, even if it was only the species and their food and their waste products. So at the end of the day, it's a nace. So why do you need the teva? The answer is HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, do as much as you can. We minimize the miracle as much as possible. Your gut instinct, if I tell you, I want you to get a good look at all of Eretz Yisrael, what would you do? Would you go down to the basement or go up at the top of the mountain? Go up on the roof. That's our natural reaction is, if I want to see something, I go up high to get as much of a look as possible. That minimizes the nace. Number one. Number two, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, look in. Remember we asked last week or 2 weeks ago, isn't that torture? I want to go in. No, but you could look. You could look, but you can't touch. Didn't you ever hear that music from your parents when you went shopping? You could look, but you can't touch, which is why my younger brother declined, the one who was going to be a zoologist, he declined going shopping with my parents. I was a little kid. He was about 6 years old. Okay, we're going shopping. You want to come with? He'd say, are you going to buy me something? My dad said, no. He says, can I touch things? He says, no. He says, so why would I want to go with? Very logical kid. Very logical kid. Why would I want to go? That's torture. So what's Moshe Rabbeinu looking in for? So we said Moshe Rabbeinu is looking in is why we say every day, V'lu Yerushalayim Yerucha Baracham Es Tzemach David Avcha Tzion. Why do we have this longing for Eretz Yisrael for 2,000 years? Where'd that longing come from? Because Moshe Rabbeinu looked in and created that longing for Klal Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu looking into Eretz Yisrael creates the same way that the Torah is eternal, and everything Moshe Rabbeinu did is eternal. Moshe Rabbeinu looking in and longing for Eretz Yisrael, that creates the longing. We have that longing. That's why we didn't want Uganda. They offered it. That was what the Zionists were thinking about going to Uganda. Let's make a Jewish home state in Uganda. Right? And then we wouldn't be able to get there because there are no airlines that fly there. Like if you're in South Africa, you got to fly with Zimbabwe Airlines or whatever it's called. What is it? Ethiopia, sorry. And so I stop in Addis Ababa. Right? They have great airport facilities in Addis Ababa. Over there, yeah.
I think if the Jews ran Uganda, it'd be better.
What?
If the Jews ran Uganda, there'd be an airport there.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That is true. That is true. But at the end of the day, we want Eretz Yisrael. And they came to Eretz Yisrael and they drained the swamps of Eretz Yisrael. Think about that. Secular Jews who came to the land of it. What do you want Israel for? And come here at personal sacrifices in 1920 and go draining the swamps and getting malaria? What's your connection? How did they even have that connection still? The answer that Moshe Rabbeinu is looking into Eretz Yisrael created, besides the fact that Hashem promised it to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But where's the longing coming from? You're living in, what do you call it? You're living in suburban Seattle. What do you want to be in Israel for? And the answer is every Jew feels there is that connection. That's what the Meforshim say. Why Hashem has Moshe Rabbeinu look into Eretz Yisrael is so that we'll have that constant yearning for Eretz Yisrael. That's what it says. Okay, one more pasuk. Perek Daled, pasuk Aleph. Ve'ata Yisrael. Perek Daled, yeah. So Moshe Rabbeinu first says, "Vaneshev bagai mul beis peor." That's where we're by beis peor. Ve'ata Yisrael shma al hachukim el mishpatim asher anochi melamed eschem lasos. Obey the statutes in the mishpatim. Leman tichyu uvasam v'yishtem el ha'oretz asher Hashem lokeh avosechem nosein lachem. That you should live and come to the land. Obey the chukim and the mishpatim. So it's an interesting thing. The chukim, what are the chukim? The chukim are the ones that don't seem to make too much sense. The mishpatim are the laws that do make sense. And the Meforshim say that the Goyim also have laws. The Goyim also have laws. What are the laws for, ostensibly? Just for the sake of running a society. You have to have some sort of law and order in a society. Here, the Torah says, obey the chukim and the mishpatim, leman tichyu, in order that you should live and come to the land of Israel. So, one of the things we have to understand, there's a law in the Torah, don't steal. Well, Goyim also have a law that says don't steal. Doesn't mean they don't. But they have a law. It says don't murder, honor your parents. These are all things that we feel are intuitive. And the Torah is telling you, the chukim of the Torah, leman tichyu v'asar yishtem, you have to understand that there's kedusha even in the mishpatim of the Jewish people. It's not just a practical law so that society could get on. Even the mishpatim, we understand that para aduma, which makes no sense, there got to be something behind it. Shatnez, there's got to be something behind it. What about honoring your parents? Yeah, well, listen, doesn't everybody? All countries, there's this idea of respecting your elders. Yeah, but the law of ours has it's laced with kedusha. And it's not just practical. By fulfilling it, we're doing something leman tichyu that we should live. We live as a result of fulfilling the mitzvahs. And what we have to know is, by the way, the Vilna Gaon says, every rabbinic law that we have, d'Rabbanans, why can't we change it? Yeah, wait 6 hours between meat and milk. I mean, nowadays we're not going to get mixed up. Why can't we change that? Why can't we change the law of a muktzah on Shabbos? I'm not going to get mixed up. So the Vilna Gaon writes, every rabbinic law, in order to change it, what's the requirement according to the Mishnah in Eduyos? Only could be changed by a Beis Din that's gadol michochma v'minyan. The only way for one Beis Din to overrule a previous Beis Din is if they're gadol man b'chachma, they got to be greater in wisdom and in number, whatever. There are different opinions of what that means b'binyan. And there is no Beis Din today that's going to think that we're greater than the Beis Din of Rabbi Gamliel or Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Okay. But the Vilna Gaon writes there's another reason. Because every revealed rabbinic law has hidden reasons that they didn't tell us. How do you like that? There are hidden reasons in the rabbinic law. So if you find that, by the way, it's not just in rabbinic law, even in customs. Do you know that there's a halach when you put on your shoes? How do you put on your shoes? Your right shoe, your left shoe, tie the left shoe, tie the right shoe. Why do we do that? Why do we tie the left shoe before the right shoe? What's that? Because it's tefillin. Because you tie your tefillin on your left side. Okay. So, sometimes we think, well, that's basically about it. We understand why. We understand because it commemorates the tefillin. So there was an incident that took place. And I always go to this because it just shows you the depth of even a law that we think we got it worked out. So there was a couple, a secular couple, a not yet religious couple, what we call them. And they were living. So this couple is living in the United States, and they get married, and their first kid, their oldest kid, is about 6 years old, and I got to send them to school. So the mother was a little more Jewishly oriented than the father, and she wants to send the kid to a Jewish day school. Father wasn't really. Listen, those people, those religious Jews are kind of, they're weird, and they're superstitious, and they're kind of behind the times, but the mother, as usual, has, the wife has her way. So they send little Stevie to the day school. And then one day, they're getting ready to go to school, and the father, he's running late. So the father goes up to the room. He's been in the school for a couple of weeks, couple of months. Father goes up to the room, and he sees Stevie putting on his shoes. He says, why do you, he sees it puts on his right shoe, then his left shoe, then he ties his left shoe, then his right shoe. He says, Stevie, that was really weird. Why did you do that? So he said, well, that's what they taught me in school. They said, you tie your right shoe, left shoe, tie your left shoe, tie your right shoe. The father goes ballistic. Starts hollering. I told you they're weird, they're superstitious, they're out of their minds. And he immediately pulls Stevie out of the day school, puts him in public school. He goes to public school, public high school, goes off to college. And of course, he gets engaged to the Shiksa Maria. And he comes home, and he's engaged to the Shiksa Maria. And then on the day he's supposed to marry Maria, the morning that he's getting ready, he's putting on his clothes, he bends down to tie his shoes, his fancy wedding shoes. And as he ties his shoes, the shoelace snaps in his hand. And that sends him on this kind of nostalgic trip back through time, thinking about his life. And he remembers sometime when he was a little kid, something about tying his shoe with shoelaces. And he realizes, how could I throw this all away and marry a shiksa? And so he picks up the phone, he says, Maria, I'm sorry, my shoelace just tore, I cannot marry you. And a week later, he gets on a plane, he comes to Ohr Somayach. How do you like that? And he was in Ohr Somayach for about a year and a half, 2 years, and finally he's ready for a shidduch. So he goes to the shadchan, sets him up with some girl named Chana, and go meet Chana at the Plaza Hotel. So he goes off to the Plaza Hotel, he's sitting there with his chumash waiting for Chana, and while he's waiting in the hotel, all of a sudden he hears his voice, hi, Steve. And he looks up, it's Maria. That's awkward. Don't you hate when that happens? He says, hi, Steve. He goes, oh, Maria. How you been? Yeah, good, Steve. Steve, what happened? Your mother, I called your mother up. She said you ran out of the country. I said, what happened? She says, I don't know. A shoelace story told me he can't marry you. So, I figured, Steve, you got to be out of your mind. Either you're out of your mind or out of my mind. So I started checking into things. And eventually I got interested in Judaism. I converted. I'm Chana. And the two of them got married, lived happily ever after, opened up a shoelace factory. And it was actually me and my wife, by the way. No, not really. That's how the stories always end, right? The stories always end, and that little boy was me. Ani mami. All the kumzit says that's how it is. No, it wasn't. But my wife's name isn't Chana, I think. But so sometimes the reason I think of that story is, you see the girls, when I tell the girls that story, like, oh. I don't know what Chazal had in mind, tie your shoelace a certain way, but we are clueless. So even the Mishpatim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Mishpatim, the Doraisas, but even the Rabbanans we don't know. The Gra says we don't know what they had in mind, so we can't tamper with it. They only told us what we see. They didn't tell us what we don't see. We don't always know all the reasons, and therefore we can't tamper with them. That's the chukim in the mishpat. We have to realize what the mishpat will do for us. Continue tomorrow, Mitzvah.
Thank you.